Welcome to Strange Weekly News. In this show, we'll be taking a look into the news and headlines to pick out curious reports of the strange, the weird, and the mysterious. Anything from UFO news to science advancements, the paranormal, and stuff labeled fringe science and fringe phenomena. Each news item we go over in this show, I will place all the links to them in the description box below once this live show is over, as well as chapters on the timeline index. Welcome to all of my first time viewers and listeners and everyone in the live chat. Zoltan, Chris, Mark, Jonaside, Dark Star, Area 51 as well. I heard that you're going to have a music gig today. Good luck doing the DJing. That sounds super awesome. You got this. Definitely got this. And hello to Grand as well. Hides. It's going to be a good show today. Before we get started, I would like to mention that on Tuesday was the top 5 strange rumors of Antarctica with Pete McCarthy from Creepy Little Book. I received such good feedback from you guys. So many of you enjoyed his appearance. So he will be doing weekly strange news with me, I believe, next week. So that's going to be a lot of fun. By the way, have you checked out my new music video yet? It's dedicated to the 1984 version of Dune and themed primarily on the prophecy of Brian Eno, which is such a spacey and chilled theme for the movie. So I will place the link in the live chat and also in the description box below. For those that do not know, I do have a space ambient music channel called Cosmic Portals that can help you sleep, meditate, relax, study, and everything in between. Yesterday, Thursday, on Mysteries with a History with Jimmy Church from Fade to Black Radio, we covered the mysteries of Japan. And today, it's weekly strange news. So let's get into it. For those that are a part of the UFO community, you probably saw this article. But for my newbies out there, this one, you're going to be in for a surprise. And that's a Chinese spy balloon spotted over the western United States. So the US is tracking a suspected keyword Chinese surveillance balloon that has been spotted over US airspace for a couple of days, but the Pentagon decided not to shoot it down over concerns of hurting people on the ground, officials said on Thursday. A senior defense official told Pentagon reporters that the US has very high confidence. It is a Chinese high altitude balloon that was flying over sensitive sites to collect information. One of the places the balloon was spotted was Montana, which is home to one of the nation's 3 nuclear missile silo fields at Malmstrom Air Force Base. How many of you have heard of the Malmstrom Air Force Base? It's pretty famous here in this community. So, if you don't know, definitely watch the show that we did regarding UFOs and nukes that was covered on Mysteries with the History a while back now. I am seeing in the live chat that some of you are asking about the shadow that was seen. Was it yesterday? Yesterday and last week as well. And I was able to see the playback. I was so grateful that Android sent me in a video of that little snippet, and I have no idea what it is. It could be a dimmer glitch with the camera, but it doesn't really worry me on what it is. But it is awesome to hear so many of you guys comment on it and have an interest in it. So that is super cool. But again, I'm really not sure what it is. I think it's just like a tech issue of some kind. But looking at this image, this spy balloon, and I'm going to continue reading this article, but I want to hear your thoughts on this. So many times we hear the excuse that people that are seeing UFOs, they're just seeing a weather balloon. But we don't usually get images in this type of detail because you're able to see here I mean, it looks like a balloon. There is nothing UFO about it. But here's where I find it a little odd with this article is that it's hitting the news hard. A lot of media outlets are covering this story, and it smells like I it to me, it seems like they're trying to grab our attention somewhere else. Yes, the UFO topic is blowing up. We did just get our second UFO report from the Pentagon, this time from Arrow. 2017 was a hot time period, and ever since then, we're getting UFOs in the news. So with this spy balloon, are they just kind of jumping on the UFO bandwagon and kind of brushing off UFOs in general? Because to me, it feels like a distraction. It feels very coincidental after mentioning balloons in the last report or balloon like entities that Jessica really emphasized on when we spoke about that report in great detail. So I'm covering this story not because of it being a spy balloon. That part I actually don't care about. What I do care about is hearing what you have to say. The Pentagon mentioned that it didn't seem too much of a threat, even though it's going over sensitive areas in Montana. They're not going to shoot it down because they fear that's going to hurt the people with the debris. I don't know, guys. Seems Seems a little too coincidental with very odd excuses for not shooting this down. If because there is this tension between the United States and China, and if it really was a spy balloon, which the Pentagon is saying that it is, they would have shot it down so quickly, but they're not seeing it as a threat. However, they are seeing UFOs as a threat. I don't know. I have a lot of questions. I don't have enough answers. I want to hear what you have to say. Chris says, they like to distract you. Interesting point. Juan says, if it was a spy balloon, why would they have Chinese lettering on it? LOL. No idea. But this is one article that I think is just super interesting. Jazz, welcome to Weekly Strange News. So glad you could make it. This is the one article that is just really making the rounds across all media outlets. And I'm asking the question, why do you think it's becoming so popular? In my case, I find it a little bit too coincidental. I find it more of a distraction more than the actual whatever the article provides on the topic. It just seems a little, Sever says they're curious. Could be. Mark says it would only take a few bullets. Yeah, it would be so easy to take it down. Because while we don't have the actual dimensions of this balloon, it is stated that it is big enough for pilots to see. So means that it's decently large. Not ginormous, but like good enough, right? And if you have really good aim, you could probably shoot it down in one or two shots. So, General Patrick Ryder, Pentagon press secretary, provided a brief statement on the issue, saying the government continues to track the balloon. He says it is currently traveling at an altitude way well above commercial air traffic and does not present a military or physical threat to people on the ground. He said similar balloon activity has been seen in the past for several years. He added that the US took steps to ensure it did not collect sensitive information. And you know what? That's an important detail. I'm all for that. The senior defense official said that the US did get fighter jets, including F 22s, ready to shoot down the balloon if ordered by the White House. The Pentagon ultimately recommended against it, noting that even as the balloon was over a sparsely populated area of Montana, its size would create a debris field large enough that it could have put people at risk. Always that threat factor right there, am I right? Mark Tasaka, thank you so much for the super sticker and supporting the channel. It is very weird. Well, These images here, this image that we're looking at, it has not been acknowledged by the Pentagon. They neither confirmed or denied this is the balloon that was seen over Montana. But one of the journalists for Billings Gazette did take these photos and did make them public because this is what he saw. His name is Larry Mayer, which is very cool. But overall, what do you think? What do you think we're seeing here? What do you think the purpose is for this article? And just in general, what's going on? Let me know in the live chat. Please let me know in the comments as well if you're watching this on a replay. Comments really do help the YouTube algorithm. Plus, I read all of your comments. I read them all, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this first article that we're covering today on Weekly Strange News. If you're listening to this on a podcast platform, jump over to YouTube, share your thoughts in the comments section. I'd love to hear them. Jessica says, well, it's obviously a balloon-like entity, lol. I agree with you there. Dark Star says, take it down. I'm surprised it hasn't been taken down yet. While you are still thinking about what is going on here, I'm going to continue on with the next article. Going to share an image here as a visual aid. You guys know the drill. So let me pull this up while I read this next one to you, this is a really cool image, by the way. So, in the past few years, a burst of incredibly capable AI programs like Midjourney, DAL-E 2, and ChatGPT have showcased the rapid progress we've made in machine learning. AI is now used in virtually all areas of science to help researchers with routine classification tasks. It's also helping radio astronomers broaden the search for extraterrestrial life, and results so far have been promising. As scientists search for evidence of intelligent life beyond Earth, they have built an AI system that beats classical algorithms in signal detection tasks. The AI was trained to search through data from radio signals for radio telescopes for signals that couldn't be generated by natural astrophysical processes. When AI was fed a previously studied database, it discovered 8 signals of interest that the classical algorithm missed. The article states that these signals are probably not extraterrestrial, but they are more likely a rare case of radio interference, but no one knows for sure. And we're going to get into that. But nonetheless, the findings published in Nature Astronomy highlight how AI techniques are sure to play a continued role in the search for extraterrestrial life. Radio astronomers look for radio technosignatures. These hypothesized signals would indicate the presence of technology and, by proxy, the existence of a society with the capability to harness technology for communication. That is huge. Scientists created an algorithm that uses AI methods to classify signals as being either radio interferences or a genuine technosignature candidate. The algorithm is performing better than expected by these scientists. So, after training the AI algorithm, it was fed more than 150 terabytes of data, 480 hours observing this from the Green Bank Telescope in West Virginia. It identified over 20,000 signals of interest, which were then manually inspected. Of these, 8 signals had the characteristics of technosignatures and couldn't really be attributed to radio interference. To try and verify these signals, they did go back to the telescope to re-observe all 8 signals of interest. Unfortunately, they say that they were not able to re-detect any of them in the follow-up observations. So, this article and this finding is bittersweet. Yes, we're bringing in AI. Yes, they found some signals that could not be explained by conventional means. But when the scientists went back to look at this, they weren't able to re-find the signals. And I can't even imagine these people, these astronomers, and scientists going into this being so excited and then they're left with nothing. I mean, that comes with the job. It does. But your heart's all in it. You're so excited. You're getting like you're sweating, right? Because you're so excited. And then nothing. Hyde says, how convenient, right? Just happens to be just spot on, which is another interesting point. Did they possibly find something and they didn't make that information public? It's possible. I don't see why not. We've seen stuff like that before, or I guess we could assume things have happened like that in previous years and in the past. Why can it not happen again? What is interesting, though, aside from us not receiving any evidence of these radio signals, is that it was still published in a high science, like, a highly regarded scientific journal, and it was made public, which is great. They're bringing AI to look for extraterrestrial life, looking for technosignatures, which is a very fancy way of looking for civilizations, right? Without saying it like that, and putting in the work. So it's good, but it's not exciting. Jazz, thank you so much. It says the signals don't repeat because it was a passing spaceship. Like a Muamua, right? Maybe? That would be so cool. All right, here's a question for everyone in the live chat and those listening in on a replay. Let's say you were given the opportunity to go on a spaceship. You didn't know where it was going, you didn't know what the entities were inside, if they were hostile or not, but you were just merely given an invitation. Do you want to come on the ship? Yes or no? Would you go on being in this element of surprise, right? Not knowing what's going on? Or would you be a bit more hesitant and say, you know what? Probably not. I think for myself, I have nothing to lose. I have not a single thing to lose. So I would go. Check it out. See what's up. My curiosity is can be a little dangerous. But if given the opportunity to go on a spaceship or to walk through a portal, not knowing what would happen on the other side, but if I could just kind of barely see the environment from the other side, from this side looking into the other side, I'd walk through that portal. I'd make sure to definitely bring some snacks. Of course, I cannot travel anywhere without some snacks, but I would go for it. But what about you? Jazz says, nope, Dark Star, we're on the same wavelength. Yes, but I'm bringing the snacks. You betcha. Jessica says, depending on what they offer me. Well, see, they're not going to offer you anything except a trip on their spacecraft or through a portal, right? That's funny, James. Gorigi, you brought up a really good point. Have they translated the rest of the book they gave us to serve man? For those that don't know, that is a Twilight Zone reference. And earlier today, I was on a show with Jim Harold. He is part of the Paranormal podcast. He is one of the pioneers when it comes to podcasting, very specifically relating to the paranormal. If you haven't seen his content, it is amazing. But we spoke about this episode of The Twilight Zone. And hold on to that thought, Gorigi, because I'm going to touch back onto that a little bit later, bringing in the reference that I just stated about being on Jim Harold's show. For those that want to see it, you can find it on his YouTube channel. And I posted it on my Facebook as well. It's a very short interview. It's like 35 minutes long, but it was a lot of fun. It's always a pleasure to be able to speak with him. James says, best episode ever. That one and The Eye of the Beholder, those are my two favorite episodes of The Twilight Zone that I can watch on repeat. Easy. Okay. So, moving on. And again, keep in mind what I just stated about how to surf man. We're going to get back to that, I promise. But moving forward, scientists have. Hold on, let me share this image here so I can give you the exact details of this article. But millions of fish are harvested across the world each year, but nearly half are killed due to disease. However, scientists have found that by inserting alligator genes into catfish, their survival chances increase by 5-fold. That's pretty impressive. The gene, dubbed catholicidin, catholicidin, contains properties that protect reptiles from infections when wounded. Typically, farmers treat sick fish with antibiotics, but this contributes to the development of antibiotic resistant bacteria. But now, scientists at Auburn University in Alabama are fusing the DNA of the two species, alligator and catfish. It found that the survival rate of the genetically modified fish was resistant to a common infection. What's more, farming fish that are resistant to disease will produce less waste, right? That makes sense. But MIT Technology reported that the fish are also sterile and they cannot reproduce unless they are injected with reproductive hormones. So that's the downfall right there. So they're probably not going to be the future of aquaculture because that means you have to keep placing reproductive hormones in all of these fish. So they're going to live and then die and then not create offspring. So that is a really big downfall. But it is an interesting step forward. Once these scientists are able to help catfish live longer, help be resistant to diseases, but to also to be able to reproduce, that is going to be great for the future of aquaculture. But right now, it's just too difficult to produce enough of these fish to get a viable, genetically healthy line going. But once again, it's a step forward, and other scientists will be able to build off of these findings from these people here from the university in Alabama. Okay, Wood, no, we are not placing scary things in people's mentality. A 20-foot catfish with teeth. No. Catgatorfish, says Dark Star. That name has a ring to it. Catgatorfish. I'm in. I can just imagine that when you're in the seafood aisle, you're gonna see a sign, Catgatorfish for sale. I can see it. I can see it now. Mark says, what could go wrong? Probably everything. But Sunspot says, catfish with alligator genes to Godzilla is just a natural transition. Good point. We should be fearful. Always. Right? Just kidding. Moving on, and we are speeding through these, but don't worry, I have a bunch of great articles for you today. I'm going to pull up this truly stunning image captured by the James Webb Space Telescope. It's been a while since we've spoken about the Webb, but I'm so happy to bring it back into our weekly strange news. Look at this beautiful image. While you look at this, I will take a sip of water. Stunning image. Oh, Patrice says, Godzilla, a time traveler? Huh. I hope not. Daniel says, where's Puck? Puck is right here. He's been a little lazy these last few weeks. He's, been feeling kind of under the weather, and I haven't been feeding him enough ramen, so. But you asked for him, so here he is. Puck, the Puck Wedgie from the Bridgewater Triangle. But look at this image, every little thing that you're seeing here is a galaxy, not a planet, not a star. We're looking at a galaxy. And of course, there are people that state, nope, there's only humans and that is it. And when you look at this image, that's implausible. That is impossible to have that mentality at this point in time in 2023 with the technology that we have now, when we are receiving these stunning images from the James Webb Space Telescope, where all of these are galaxies. Can we really be the only things here in the universe? No. A newly released image from NASA's James Webb Space Telescope shows a crowded field of galaxies and stars, with a distant spiral galaxy standing out in stunning detail. That's right, Skyhawk, I am with you on that one. Where is the image of Proxima b? I don't know, but I'm still waiting on it. This particular image also shows a host of other galaxies and stars, all marked by the six-pointed diffraction spikes that are a signature of James Webb Space Telescope observations. The image was captured by the JWST's near-infrared camera, or NIRCam, while the telescope was observing the white dwarf WD 1657 plus 343. Doesn't that name just roll off the tongue so nicely? What a just perfect name for a white dwarf. I'm in. This historical insight is possible because light takes a finite time to travel to Earth from distant galaxies. So, looking at these galaxies is akin to seeing them at the time when the light left, sometime as early as in the 13.85 billion year history of the cosmos, as around 300 million years after the Big Bang. Light from these galaxies doesn't remain unchanged over the course of its many billion year journey to the 21-foot wide, 6.5 meter gold plated primary mirror of the James Webb Space Telescope, however. Which is fascinating information, by the way. But just look how beautiful this galaxy is. And our Milky Way is supposed to look exactly like this particular one that we're looking at here. That is just in stunning, stunning detail. So, could you imagine all of these star systems, all of those worlds, the potential for life? And yet, every other light source in that image is also a galaxy. So, it truly boggles the mind, and as you can tell, it makes me very excited. It does. And to the point where I kind of don't even have words. I can stare at these images all day and allow my imagination to run from there. All of the There's so much potential for life right there. We can look at the aspect of Star Trek, for instance, and I know many of us have grown up with that, to the point that the show is still running today. But if you look at it and you consider all of these different alien species having their own trading systems, traveling from one area to the next, one galaxy to the next, even, it goes to show that not only is the potential of life limitless, but also our imagination is as well. There is no limit. Patrice says, super pretty. I could not agree more. Can't agree more with you there. Area 51, you bring up a really good point. Puts a perspective about how we belong to the universe, even though we are so small. Absolutely right. That's a funny one, Mark. If you are enjoying this show so far and you're watching this on YouTube, give it a thumbs up. Please do. And so far, while we've only covered less than half of the articles for today, let me know in the live chat, let me know in the comments, what's your favorite articles so far that we've covered? But don't worry, I have so many more for you. Some of them amazing, some of them just straight out strange. You're so right, Robert. Absolutely agree. Hey, Puck is up. There he is. He's right there. This next one, it's also fish related because I just came and I didn't know this was a thing. But there's apparently a unicorn fish. You heard me right. A fish with the unicorn horn. They are real. They are a thing. And I'm going to share that image right here, right now on YouTube. Let's pull it up. It looks kind of grody. I know it does. But look, it has a little horn right there. So this fish can only be found in certain parts of China. And as you can tell, it has a horn like structure protruding from its head, a lack of scales, and a lack of pigmentation as well. The researchers found this unicorn like fish while surveying cave fish from the genus Cynocyclochilius. So, fish in this genus are found only in China, usually within small pools that are shrouded in darkness. Right? Makes sense about their lack of pigmentation. There are about 76 known species of this type of fish, and most of which share similar characteristics with the with this newly found species, such as a reduced or no vision, a lack of scales, and usually no pigmentation. However, only some of these fish possess a horn, and others have lost their eyes completely in a process known as regressive evolution, in which species lose complex features over generations. There are also a handful of these species that live in illuminated waters, which would, of course, they wouldn't have the same features as this one. They would be more they would have pigment, they would have scales, probably have better vision than these ones. This fish, it's about 4.1 to 5 inches long, about 10.5 to 14.6 centimeters, and possess two pairs of whisker like barbels that they use to kind of feel their way around the dark, kind of like cats. Also, other fish do have these whisker like things as well to help them feel out everything. But, fun fact, and this is what I learned from my history teacher back in the 8th grade, she cut off her cat's whiskers. She thought it would be funny when she was a kid, and the cat was actually like losing his balance. So whiskers are very important, and that goes for all animals. In this case, for this fish, it's kind of to help it feel out the waters because it's blind, right? But this horn is a little bit more unique. Not all of the fish in this species have a horn, which is really cool, but it kind of looks freaky on this fish. I'm all for unicorns. Unicorns are mystical, magical, amazing creatures, but a unicorn-like fish, not really digging it. But it was just recently found in the dark waters of China, and it can only be found there. Interesting point. Chris says looks very catfishy. It kind of does, but a little bit scarier and pale. Patrice says would eat it. Rock on. Oh, welcome. Welcome, Andrew. Just heard ya on Jim Harold. Looking forward to checking out more of your content about UFOs. You came to the right place and you get to watch this show live. Rock on. Juan says, can you eat it? I have no idea. I think that they're kind of more in that rare range because I'm assuming there aren't too many of them, but would you want to eat that? It looks kind of scary. It looks like really small and bony, you know? Like, come on. But Skinny Bob, I agree. Unicorn fish, that should be the scientific name of this fish. Unicorn fish. Yes. Just yes. Well, those are my 2 fish articles for today. Mark says cats need their whiskers to judge the size of gaps in their environment. Interesting. Love cats. Like Cat Island that we spoke about yesterday in Japan. Would I go? Absolutely. And there's 11 different cat islands, all of which are in Japan. For those that haven't seen that episode, look at Mysteries with the History, the Mysteries of Japan, and we go into detail on Cat Island. This next article is strange. We have heard stories of people knowing their doppelgangers, right? I've never met mine. I'd be pretty darn excited if I could. But there was this one woman in particular who wanted to fake her own death. So she attempted to look for her doppelganger, killed her, and then said, no, that was actually me because she was having issues with her family. Sounds crazy, right? Let's get into detail on that. When a 23-year-old woman was found brutally murdered in Germany back in August of 2022, police investigators moved quickly to determine who was responsible for the crime. Questions were very quickly raised, however, when an autopsy report cast doubt on the claim that the deceased was Sheriban K, last name is not disclosed, a 23-year-old beautician, as claimed by the alleged victim's family. Turns out it wasn't Sheriban. No. It was a beauty blogger by the name of Khadija O, again, last name not disclosed, who is the exact same age as the beautician. They looked shockingly similar, but they weren't the same person. So the police soon realized that this likeness was the key to the whole case, the key to the murder. And it turns out that Sheriban, who wanted to fake her own death, had decided to track down a doppelganger on Instagram and murder them so that her family would believe that it was she who died. According to prosecutors, she had contacted several lookalikes in an attempt to arrange a meeting, but despite making them various promises, she was unable to get any of them to meet her. But when she came across this beauty blogger, she agreed to meet her doppelganger. She's like, yeah, sure, I'm all for it. So Sheriban, along with a second individual, picked her up from her apartment, drove her out to some remote woodland area, and let's just say she didn't make it out alive. The whole purpose for this, and stated in an article, was that it was assumed that Sheriban wanted to go into hiding due to internal family disputes, wanting to fake her own death. But going to these extremes is dramatic. While this did take place in August of 2022, it is just now really hitting the news. You can find it in multiple locations. That's how I came across this article, by multiple different news outlets covering this case. And it's sad, but it goes to show, trust no one. Don't trust strangers. Don't trust your family. Don't trust people that you know, because you never actually know their intentions. But more specifically, if some random person is going to ask for your house address to come pick you up, that is a mistake. My mom always taught me, she said, if someone wants to hang out with you, you're going to drive there yourself so that if anything happens, you can drive yourself back home. But if someone picks you up, you have to depend on that person to take you back home. Of course, things have changed in the recent years with Uber and Lyft and things like that, but it's still not as speedy as getting into your own car and driving off. So the moral of the story is, don't trust anyone. And if you want to go somewhere, drive there yourself if you have the means to do so. On a side note, it would be super cool to meet a doppelganger. I just hope that mine is not as crazy as Sheriban here. Chris, as I have a doppelganger, I want to see these pictures. I thoroughly enjoy seeing images of two people that look alike that aren't actually biological twins. Those are so much fun because, like, they look very similar. You can kind of see the slight differences amongst them. But what's interesting also about doppelgangers is that they, not always, but they supposedly share similar personality attributes as well, which is very interesting. It's very interesting. it is. It's a weird, strange story, and this is weekly strange news. So of course, we're gonna be covering cases like these. It's a bit dark, it's a bit gruesome. I am sorry for those that aren't into that. I'm not too much into that, but we have to cover it. All right. Now, for those that have been here since the beginning, I mentioned Jim Harold. We spoke about the episode of How to Serve Man by the Twilight Zone. We are bringing that back over to this conversation right here, right now. I'm going to share an image as a visual aid here. And he asked me a really good question. He said, should we trust these entities for those that have had contact with extraterrestrials if they were ever to come down for whatever reason and mingle with the humans here? Should we trust them? And to give my answer, I said we need to have a cautious mentality. We shouldn't trust anyone. We shouldn't give any person or any entity full power. We need to be protective of ourselves. No matter if they state, I have really good intentions. That's not always the case. And a really good example of this is the episode of How to Serve Man. This alien came down and he spoke to the what I would call the United Nations in this episode. He gives them a book. No, he's reading through a book and he leaves it on the counter while he leaves and goes back into his spacecraft, but stating that he wants to help the environment and he wants to help people and everything like this. People were skeptical, but then at some point they're like, "Oh yeah, now they're giving tours to get on their spacecraft and go back to their planet. Yeah, that's so awesome. Let's go for it." But near the very end of the episode, they finally decode the book. And it wasn't like how to make man happy. No, it was a cookbook on how to serve man, how to cook man. And that was the moral of the story. And it's a great episode for those that haven't seen it. I do super highly recommend it. The majority of the episodes of The Twilight Zone are impeccable, but that one, it goes to show do not trust anyone or anything. In this article talking about how an alien researcher by the name of Malcolm Robinson says that from his research, ET does not come in peace. And a really good example of this that people don't always talk about is abduction cases. Yes, there are some where people are healed, of course, but there are the majority that are incredibly traumatic. And while there are a handful of contactees and experiencers that state they really want to help our planet, they really want to take care of us, they're giving me all this ancient knowledge. What is the purpose for that? Tina, thank you so much for becoming a member right here on YouTube. And as many of you know that watched yesterday's show, she knitted an amazing hat for Jimmy Church, and I also got one as well. Mine is brown, his is black, and it's all thanks to Tina. And so thank you so much for supporting this channel. Everything that is all of the YouTube members, Patreon subscribers, super chats, and super stickers, it goes straight to the show production costs. But if you can't drop some, don't even sweat it. Just hit the like button, hit the join button as well for those that do want to support this channel, because you do get access to a bunch of goodies and really cool stickers as well, like stickers for the comment section. But looking at what Malcolm Robinson's argument is, if we look at these examples of some UFO encounters, UFO abductions, they don't always seem that hot. They do not always seem like rainbows and unicorns, like this is the best day of my life kind of vibe. But we don't really talk about this in the UFO community or in many of the experiencer groups either. They look at the positive side, which is there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. We should always see the bright light in any situation. But having this conversation, it is important to talk about the negatives. What are their intentions? What are they doing here? How come they show up to some people but not to everyone? How come they abduct some people but not all types of people? Sometimes they're very specific on the people that they want to take some from what some researchers have stated in their books and in their investigations. So let me throw this question back at you. From your understanding, do extraterrestrials, from the stories that you've heard, do they have good intentions? Is it mixed? Does it depend on the race? Because it's been stated by UFO researchers and contactees that there are different types of races visiting planet Earth. Do they have different intentions? You would think so, right? Or are they all they don't have humanity's uh best interest? Let me know in the live chat. Let me know in the comments, please, for those watching this on replay. And for those listening to this on a podcast platform, jump over to YouTube and share your thoughts with me and everyone else. I'd love to hear it. Sever says, I don't know. And I think that is the most humble answer that someone can give. I don't know. Nobody does. Nobody has the answer. But I want to hear what everyone has to say. I have no idea. I'm not going to claim that I know because I don't. I've only been doing the research extensively for the last 2-ish years. And it seems like I have so many more questions than answers as I continue. Patrice says, I think they're just interested in military operations. This is an interesting point. We spoke about this in the episode of UFOs and war zones, where UFOs are seen a lot during areas of war, near Air Force bases, near nuclear facilities as well. Could it be just for that reason? Because we're kids playing with very dangerous toys? Is that it? Mark says, there is so much misinformation. We don't know their true nature. We don't. We don't. Crazy Peaches, super cool name. It says, there might be some types that are good for humanity and others, like grays, that could be seen as potentially bad. Interesting point. I'm with you on that one. James says, we're a crude, violent race, and we wouldn't be contacted in a worldwide event. That's a mentality that a lot of people hold as well. And let's stay on this. People, and I've seen this as a post across social media at different points in time, but there seems to be this fear that ET, aliens, extraterrestrials, whatever you want to call them, we fear that they're going to do the things to us that we would do to them or to animals, dissecting them, testing on them, being very violent and crude and violent to them, right? We have that fear, many of us. Now, would they actually do that? Well, we can look at abductions, for example, those that have had painful encounters. Wasn't it like that for them? Others, of course, have been healed. They're very grateful for their experiences. So it just depends on the person, depends on the situation. I think overall, but we don't have the answers. We don't know what's going on. And that's why this conversation is so interesting to have. But we also project our own human mentality on them, right? I mean, humanity has a very strong set of egocentricities. So we can't even understand other life forms on Earth. So how can we expect to understand another intelligent race that isn't from Earth, that didn't grow up in the same environment that we did, that doesn't have the same overall mentality that we do, where it's the what's the term? Survival of the fittest, right? We have that mentality. Could that change for other races that were raised in a totally different planet or environment? We even try to understand the mentality of dolphins, but ultimately, we don't know anything. So they could be here for a totally unexpected reason, right? Right? We don't know. And that's where the mystery lies. That's where it gets interesting or terrifying, depending on who you ask. XR cattle mutilations, also a thing. It's kind of spooky. Moving on to our next article. We have spoken about the company called Colossal before. It's this bioscience company that wants to bring the woolly mammoth back to life. Well, not only do they want to bring the woolly mammoth back to life, but they want to bring the dodo bird back to life as well. Fun fact, I just learned this today, to be absolutely fair with you. Dodo birds are not as dumb as we originally expected them to be. They were decently smart in comparison to pigeons, which pigeons are considered to be moderately intelligent. So, if we were to bring them back, maybe they're not as silly as television and media had portrayed them to be, like just walking off a cliff and dying, right? Well, Colossal just came out in 2021, I believe, talking about they want to bring back the woolly mammoth to help the environment. But now they are stretching out their wings. See what I did there? And they want to bring the dodo back because the dodo is a symbol of man made extinction, says Ben Lamb, a serial entrepreneur and co founder and CEO of Colossal. The company has formed a division to focus on bird related genetic technologies. The last dodo, a flightless bird about the size of a turkey, was killed in 1681 on an Indian Ocean island. The Dallas company, which launched in 2021, also announced Tuesday it has raised an additional $150 million in funding. To date, it has raised $225 million from wide ranging investors that include United States Innovative Technology Fund, Breyer Capital, and InQtel, the CIA's venture capital firm, which invests in technology. We're also aware that Brandon Fugel, the owner of Skinwalker Ranch, is also an investor for the Dallas company Colossal. The prospect of bringing the dodo back isn't expected to directly make money, said Lamb, but the genetic tools and equipment that the company develops to try to do it may have other uses, including for human healthcare, he said. And I wish he went into detail on that. Human healthcare in what ways? What would that do? I would like to know. For example, Colossal is now testing tools to tweak several parts of the genome simultaneously. It's also working on technologies for what is sometimes called an artificial womb. The dodo's closest living relative is the Nicobar pigeon, said by Beth Shapiro, a molecular biologist on Colossal's scientific advisory board who has been studying the dodo for 2 decades, 20 years. Her team plans to study DNA differences between this pigeon and the dodo to understand what are the genes that really make a dodo a dodo. Interesting. The team may then attempt to edit the pigeon cells to make them resemble dodo cells. It may be possible to put the tweaked cells into developing eggs of other birds, such as pigeons and chickens, and kind of go in from there, which is interesting. I would like to state that I originally learned about the dodo from Alice in Wonderland. What I never noticed until today was that it has human hands. This image in the Alice in Wonderland book, the dodo bird has human hands and some cuffs. It's kind of weird. Here's another image that looks a little bit more realistic of what a dodo bird should look like. Both animals are a product of both their genetics and their environment, which has changed dramatically since the 1600s, Shapiro said. But it's not impossible to recreate a 100% identical copy of something that's gone, which is an interesting point that was made. Other scientists wonder if this is even a advisable idea to potentially try, and question whether de-extinction diverts attention and money away from efforts to save species still on Earth. Now, some people are not digging this idea at all. They're like, why do you want to bring an extinct animal back when we can't even maintain the animals that we already have here on planet Earth? And you can go into detail. You can read the details in the article that I will place in the description box below that are totally against it. But looking at the head or like the face of the dodo, you can see dinosaur characteristics, right? So I do wonder how much reptilian dinosaur DNA is in the dodo. Which is gonna be super cool. But can you see that for those watching this on YouTube? Can you see some kind of dinosaur characteristics there? This thing is huge. Size of a turkey. Hmm. But let's throw this question to you. Do you think we should bring back the dodo? That we should bring back the woolly mammoth as well? Mark says, why don't we just mix the dodo and T Rex DNA and be done with it? Why not? At this point, we can do anything when it comes to science and mixing DNA together because we're talking about the dodo. We just recently spoke about the alligator DNA mixing with catfish to make them live longer. Anything is possible. Jessica says, wasn't there a lot more oxygen in the air when the mammoth was alive? Yes. So it has been speculated that there was more oxygen at that time. And that's probably a factor that Colossal has put into their equation when considering bringing the woolly mammoth back to life. At least I would assume so. Otherwise, that would be just terrible. But looking at this, let me know in the live chat. Let me know in the comments. What, do you think we should bring back the dodo? Do you think it's a good idea? Do you think it's important, or do you just not care about it? Like it doesn't really affect your life, which for many it probably doesn't. I feel that. Stevie says the dodo isn't as bad as bringing back the mammoths to me. Interesting point. I like the comparison. But this is just another weird thing in the news. Moving forward, do you live in Scotland? Very specifically in Edinburgh? And I made sure to say that correctly. I even Googled how to say it so I would say it right because I know I would get some Brits in here and some Scottish people saying, no, you said it wrong. I want to make you proud. So I did the research to make sure I said it right. Edinburgh. I almost sound native, right? Local. No, just kidding. All right, let me show this image here while I read this article because Edinburgh Castle might be the most haunted location in all of Scotland. And let's just be super clear. Probably. All castles are probably haunted. Ireland, Scotland, anywhere else, haunted. I lived in Ireland for about a year when I was young. And my mother loved visiting all of the castles. You could literally walk out of your house and there's a castle. They're everywhere. And there were so many ghost stories attached to these castles that would blow your mind. So am I surprised that this castle is haunted? No. But it's believed to be the most haunted castle in all of Scotland. Ah, thank you, Brass. I'm in Scotland, not bad, lassie. Thank you. I feel honored. So let's talk about this. There are a few stories, a few ghost stories attached to this castle that we're just kind of gonna touch on. We're just gonna like briefly go over them because they are interesting. So the first one is um regarding is in regards to a little drummer back in 16 first seen in 1650. But talking about this article, the reason to why it's classified as number 1 because it was in the news last week, and there was a poll asking what's the most haunted location of all in Scotland, of all of Scotland, and it was the Edinburgh Castle. That's why we are talking about it here today, because we wouldn't talk about it if it wasn't recently on the news, right? Come on, guys, obviously. So the first legend starts off with a little drummer boy that goes back to 1650 when his headless ghost was spotted playing an old Scottish war tune in that area. His spirit appeared with Oliver Cromwell's men while they were laying siege to the castle, therefore giving credence to the belief that the boy appeared when the castle was under attack. Nobody knows who this apparition could be, but anyone living today hasn't witnessed this phenomenon, as Edinburgh Castle hasn't been under any kind of threat since 1745. So this story was around for less, give or take 100 years, and they kind of just stopped. But that legend still goes on. But there's a few other weird activity that takes place there. And now there are tours for this castle. For those that live in Scotland or are going to visit Scotland, you're going to have to go to this castle, because this next story is in regards to a Piper boy. Several centuries ago, a secret network of tunnels was discovered underneath Royal Mile and went from the castle towards Holyrood Place. To find out where they led, the brave souls at the time sent a young Piper boy to search the tunnels for them. That seems to be the thing. You you put the kids in. You make the kids do the dirty work. But also those tunnels could have been small at the time, right? So literally a grown man wouldn't be able to do it. You gotta put in a kid. But still, like that's kind of brutal, don't you think? Well, he set out playing his bagpipes, and the people above followed the sound. The sound was clear for a time until the bagpipes stopped abruptly near Tronkirk on Royal Mile. Several search parties went down to locate the boy, but the poor piper was nowhere to be found. Disturbed by the boy's disappearance, the city council at the time ordered that the tunnels be sealed, never to be reopened. Now, that could be absolute BS, like just a total rumor, or stay with me, or not only did they lose the Piper boy, but maybe they found something there that they shouldn't have. Because there would be no reason to seal it up if you just lost one boy, right? There wouldn't be an explanation for that. And if these tunnels are super duper long, it's going to be some work to seal up these tunnels. So the story goes one of two ways: either totally not true, just a total myth, or they saw something that they shouldn't have. For those that live in Scotland that are familiar with this castle, please let me know in the live chat. Please let me know in the comments what you can add to that little tidbit of the story. Because I want to know. I'm curious. Brass says, and thank you so much, Scottishman, telling us the story. Edinburgh has a whole old town underground. They just built on top of the old town. Thank you. I didn't know that. And I know I'm not the only one that didn't know that. So thank you. Patrice says, wonder if the poor kid found a sinkhole. Interesting point. I wish there was more information on this Piper boy, because I want to know the secrets. I want to know everything. But Mark brings up a good point. It depends on your superstitions. Brett says that's the most of Europe. Like underground tunnels are just like being scary because both, right? Well, there's even another one. This one is called The Grey Lady. The story of Jeanette is a tragic one. Caught in the middle of a family feud, she would ultimately be executed by King James V of Scotland. Excuse me. Hold on. She was brother to Archibald Douglas, 6th Earl of Angus, who was the king's stepfather and very much hated by James, and he imprisoned him as a young boy. James held a grudge against Archibald and all of the Douglas family, and in 1537, Janet was convicted of trying to poison James by using witchcraft. However, such evidence was proving difficult to obtain, so James had her servants and friends tortured until they gave him the evidence, that's in quotation marks, that he required. Janet was subsequently convicted and burned at the stake right outside Edinburgh Castle in July of 1537 with her young son forced to watch. Shortly after her gruesome death, people witnessed the Grey Lady walking throughout the castle, weeping. Dang. And supposedly, if you go on these tours right here in this castle, you might be able to hear the Grey Lady weeping. If given the opportunity, if you were given a ticket to go over to Scotland, would you go to Edinburgh Castle? Would you check it out? Would you go on a ghost tour? Let me hear it. What? Yes, would I? Absolutely. There is no question there. Scotland and I, we have this frenemy relationship. When I used to live in Ireland, going to Scotland was so easy. So I begged my dad to take me so that I could go see Nessie, the Loch Ness monster, because my heart was sold that I was magical and then I could see the Loch Ness monster. That didn't really work out very well because after like 10 minutes, I was bored out of my mind and I didn't get to see the Loch Ness monster, but instead, some random man was like, hey, come over to my boat and eat some oysters with me. And what did we do? We went on this man's boat, and that was my first and last time ever eating oysters. They are too slimy and salty for me. Thank you very much. But aside from that, Scotland is an interesting place. Would I go back? Why not? Yes, I would. But let's. DJ says that castle is cool. Tyler says definitely. Patrice says castle tours for the win. Absolutely right. And yeah, you got to go. They're so awesome, filled with history. I do wish that they would be refurbished, right? Like have good furniture in there so that we kind of like live in that moment. But a lot of them have been abandoned. I'm not going to say all of them, but the ones that I visited when I lived in Ireland, they're kind of like falling apart, which is sad, but also very, very cool. Patrice says, I love the cloudy skies. You either love it or you hate it. Feel that. Saber says, I hate them. For a pine, yeah. That is the most accurate description of an oyster I've ever read. Yes. Patrice, too expensive to keep them. Honestly, that is so true. That's a funny one, Chris. Funny joke right there. Moving on to our next article. This one is really cool. For those that like the ocean, that like going on yachts or boats, this next article might be up your stream. I'm sorry. I'm full of dad jokes today. I think it's the lack of sleep. But we're looking at what supposedly is an invisible yacht, better known as a super yacht, being 290 feet long or about 88 meters. And this is only for the super duper rich, the elite. And it has yet to be created, it hasn't been made yet. It's still kind of in the theoretical phases. But this invisible super yacht is an idea that would allow the super rich to travel the world in utmost secrecy. This luxury super yacht, which would be made entirely out of mirrored glass to reflect the sea and sky, has been unveiled as a concept by designer Joseph Falkis. He said that the proposed 290-foot vessel dubbed Pegasus would be the world's first 3D printed vessel and invisible both in design and in her environmental impact. The boat, with built in solar panels, would be able to reflect the sky, clouds, and the surrounding environment. Its reflective solar wings hidden in the glass of the superstructure would be able to provide solar electric power to run, working alongside a hydrogen hybrid source. Yeah, I mean, it sounds cool. Don't get me wrong. Would I go on that? Yeah, why not? But uh, it will not be made until maybe 2030. And once again, it'll be the world's first 3D printed vessel, which is really cool, honestly. Looking at the interior, the supposable what they're expecting for the interior to look like. You got this nice staircase that does the spiral thingy. Then you got some nice plants going on here because, rich people really like plants. So you have all that greenery everywhere. There'll also be a lounge and, to my understanding, kind of like where people can sleep as well, like multiple rooms for like a hotel suite, but like not a hotel, you know what I mean? Kind of like that. So it's a pretty cool ship. Once again, it is supposedly invisible, made with mirrors and stuff. So anyone can just kind of stealthily go on the boat, go on vacation, and no one will know where you are. So they say. But that also sounds like kind of dangerous, right? For other boats that can't see you and then they just ram right into you and then your whole boat shatters. So there's probably some things that need to be considered when purchasing this boat, or at least knowing where you're going to be going out to the sea, how far you're going to go out. Hopefully, you have a good radar so you can see other boats and things like this. But yeah, there's going to be a few issues probably for the first few of them, if anyone actually ever buys this. Which again, it's only for the super rich. The amount of how much this will cost has not been made public just yet, so we don't know. We can kind of only assume. So here's my question. Looking at this image, how much do you think it'll go for? I don't have the answer, so I cannot say yes or no. But how much do you think this super yacht would go for that has plants inside of the yacht? That's going to be 3D printed. How much? Daniel says, so unnecessary. But Sever says, give me dead. I'm like, yeah, you want the boat. Feel it. Hi, Cryptid Huntress. For those that aren't familiar with Cryptid Huntress, jump over to her YouTube. She creates amazing content that you simply do not want to miss. She says, I totally buy it one day. Yeah, you either love the sea or you don't. And I'm on the side of kind of not really, but being on a boat shouldn't be too bad. Shouldn't be too bad. Mark says, invisible boat? A dumb idea. Android is throwing down the dollars, thinking that it's going to cost about $250 million. I don't know. Jess says $2 billion for that. That seems pretty high, but at the point where inflation is going, I don't see why not. 300 million, says Daniel. All right. Cyber says free. That'd be nice. That'd be very nice for some people, right? Patrice says, whatever the cost, too much. Too much. Chris says, $1 billion. It reminds me of the clip of Austin Powers. You have Dr. Evil. $1 million. Guys, I am so sorry. It is the lack of sleep that is really getting to me. It's just making me like terrible dad jokes. But for those listening to this on a podcast platform, jump over to YouTube so that you can see these images that we are sharing today on Weekly Strange News. Weekly Strange News is filled with visuals. So the best place to listen or to watch this is right on YouTube. I got a few more articles for you. Okay, Chris said that's why I said it. All right, I feel a little better. I feel a little better that some of you guys get the reference that I'm not that crazy. All right, moving on. This next one is pretty cool. And why is that? Because it's made the news and it's kind of changing the way that we are seeing human history. Let me take a sip of water and I darn wish I had some coffee right now because this semester is seriously so intense, taking 6 courses at the same time, keeping me up late and so many other stuff. So thank you for everyone that's sticking around watching this show and hearing all of my dad jokes today. Okay. So moving on, let me share an image here. This is seriously really cool. This has made news across the mainstream. So, for those that kind of keep up with the news, you might be familiar with this next article. And that is a 1.2 million year old stone tool workshop uncovered in Ethiopia is oldest ever found. This is this is huge news. So, a tan cliff stretching through a valley in Ethiopia contained a collection of black stone that were much more than just rocks. Archaeologists noticed a large deposit of obsidian stones, which are fragile black volcanic rock that is super difficult to carve, while studying the Melka Kunture archaeological site. Looking closer, they noticed the obsidian pieces had been shaped into hand axes. Researchers uncovered nearly 600 stone tools, almost exclusively made up of obsidian in one section of the cliffside only. The artifacts were over 1.2 million years old, and based on the weathering pattern, the tools were likely found near where they were initially buried. This was a focused activity from hominin crafters, researchers said. The sheer amount of hand axes and debris that had accumulated suggest that this was an often repeated activity and even a routine one. The tools provided evidence of the repetitive use of fully mastered skills by hominins, the early family of modern humans. Now, when we think of hominins, we could even call them cavemen, hunter gatherers. We are aware that tool crafting dates back to about 3.3 million years, but researchers believe that the use of dedicated workshops for tool crafting came a millennia later. So the finding in Ethiopia have challenged that timeline. And here on this channel, we don't always talk about it, but we do frequently enough talk about ancient history and locations that make you question the human timeline. A good example of this is Gobekli Tepe, which is Jimmy's favorite word to say, and he says it so much better than I do. But when we're looking at this this image, looking at these stone tool workshops, it makes me want to go back in time, grab my TARDIS, go over here back to Ethiopia 1.2 million years ago and seeing how these hominins looked, what they thought, and if they acted the way that archaeologists have described them in modern times as very primitive, very basic. But to have a workshop, you got to think pretty well. Very complex thinking as well, right? Right? Let me know. Tell me in the comments. What do you think about this? Would I have no idea? Does obsidian carry vibration like crystals? Someone please answer that question for him because I don't know. But I tell you what I suspect. I think that they have been several ages of humanity over these millions of years. But what about you? It's another question I'm throwing back right at you. What do you think about that? DJ says they had the same brains as us. X says rocket debris in Ural Mountains, Christina. Look into it. I will. I will do that. Paranormal Pixie says yes, it does. Cassidy says it's volcanic glass. That's right. Excuse me. Sever says definitely. Oh, hey Senza. So this is a really interesting article that was just recently released, and it really does make you question humanity's timeline, at least what we've been taught in school, which is really cool. And as I had mentioned at the very beginning of the show and a little bit in the middle of the show, I will place all of the links to these articles covered in the description box below once this live show is over so that you can also look into them as well. We got a few minutes left, and I have a strange article for you. Last week, we spoke about KFC scented incense. Today, we have pasta water candles. Yeah, you heard me right. Pasta water in candles, like a candle scent. Gonna pull up this image here. And you can buy these. These are publicly available, unlike those KFC incense that you have to win, which is very disappointing. But these candles you can purchase. DS and Durga have made some very interesting candle smells in the past. They have made meatball scented candles for IKEA. They have made pickle candles, and they've even made a candle that smells like Thanksgiving feast. Well, DS and Durga has upped the ante with this very oddly scented candle that is supposed to be pasta water. I'm waiting for the ramen scent wood. I am. I would purchase that one in a heart. No, I wouldn't. I would not purchase that because I cook it so often. I wouldn't need a candle. But similar to what you would experience during a quick hover over a pot of boiling pasta, the pasta water candle boosts top notes of saline water and heart notes of the pasta as well. But if you're really curious, if you really want this, it retails for $70. Yeah. Big downfall there. But the umami heavy pasta water candle doesn't serve as the only unique scent from these creators. If you go on their website, you can also get a candle that smells like diesel. You know, like when you go to the gas station, right? You either love or hate that smell. And you can even get the smell of leather as well for $70. So if you want that, go for it. Or you can just make pasta at home and just enjoy that smell while you're cooking. So, a few dollars or 70. It's up to you. But obviously this company is doing well enough to have multiple scented candles, selling them all for that much. So, must be doing pretty darn good. Skyhawk says, a new record 84 minutes before ramen was mentioned. LOL. I'm happy you're keeping tabs, Skyhawk. Gotta mention ramen. It's like a little nugget for every show, right? You gotta find the word ramen in it. It's too funny. Too funny. So, with Weekly Strange News, we cover the weird, we cover the mysterious, we cover UFOs, science advancements, and so much more. You know what we didn't cover today that we usually always cover? And that was snakes. Somehow, in some way, snakes always come up in the news, but it did not come up this week. I'm a bit disappointed now that I think about it. But instead, we got the James Webb Space Telescope, which is incredibly fascinating. Out of all the articles that we out of all of the articles that we covered today, I said articles. Which one was your favorite? Let me know in the live chat. Let me know in the comments as well. I do enjoy talking about like really strange foods that somehow hit the news. I'll never forget the dumpling flavored soda that was released in Japan, where when you open it, it smells like ginger and vinegar. I'll never forget that one. But today we had pasta water candles, which is very interesting. Jess, thank you so much for the super sticker and supporting the channel. For those that want to continue this conversation, jump over to my Discord server in the after show chat. The link is right up here. It's also in the description box below. But when you need help relaxing, chilling, meditating, or anything in between, take a look at my space ambient music channel called Cosmic Portals. You can find that link in the description box below as well. Once again, that music channel that I make the music, it is called Cosmic Portals. People ask me, Chris, did you really make that? And I'm like, yes. For those that want to see my setup, my music studio, you could call it, you can find that image on my social media, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You will find that image there, and it's cool. I enjoy it. Make sure to hit the thumbs up before you head out. Subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for everyone that came and watched this live. Thank you to all of the new viewers and listeners that stuck around. Thank you to all the super chats, super stickers, Patreon subscribers, YouTube members, and all of my amazing moderators. I simply couldn't do this show without you guys. That is it for today. I'll see you next time. Be safe and remember, keep your eyes on the skies.